Welcome back, Exiles. I just ran 100 ritual maps in a row to figure out if this mechanic is something you should start paying more attention to or completely forget about. In this video, we're going to go over the rewards from exclusively the 100 rituals. I am not going to include any of the loot picked up off the ground of the maps themselves. The reason for this is that the map loot is going to be completely different from person to person, depending on your rarity percent and ability to identify high value items. The goal here is to test specifically the value of adding and focusing rituals in your maps. Now, without further ado, let us begin. So why would ritual be good? Well, there are a couple reasons. First off, your character's rarity percent has nothing to do with what is inside your rituals. And there are a few omens that are actually selling at the currency exchange for a decent price. But the big drop we are aiming for is the Audience with the King, which at the time of making this video is going for 6 Divine Orbs. This is the item required to go fight the ritual boss, to progress your ritual atlas tree, and possibly get one of a few spicy drops. Now, since the Audience with the King is so expensive, and during my first 400 hours of gameplay, I haven't seen one show up yet to get my ritual atlas tree started, I'm going to assume that this is likely the situation most people are in. But I'll be starting this test off by farming my rituals with a completely blank 0 of 8 atlas tree. To help us be able to afford the Audience with the King if it shows up, I will be using ritual tablets with the modifier monsters sacrificed at ritual altars in area grant percent increased tribute. And we will also use waystones with juicy pack size modifiers. I plan to self-sustain these two, so I will only be using them when available. Clear speed is going to be huge when calculating if this strategy is worth it or not. The more rituals we see per hour will be directly correlated to how good the strategy is and feels to run. So to speed up our zooming potential here, this is my mapping strategy. All the items inside your rituals will be revealed after the 3rd ritual of a map is completed. So on any maps with 4 rituals, we will use our rerolls after the 3rd ritual is finished to check for an Audience with the King. If one appears, we will do the 4th ritual. If not, then we will either complete the map if it is required for traversal, or we will just leave. Yes, that means if we are doing a map that is not required for traversal to another ritual map, then after the 3rd ritual is completed and we use our rerolls to check for an audience, if one does not show up, we just leave. We don't complete the map, we don't pass go and collect $200. This is to accelerate us and zoom onto our next map where we can check more rituals. The final part of our strategy is going to be not deferring anything other than super juiced omens or an Audience with the King. When you defer an item, it will take up part of the inventory of your next ritual, and we want every possible chance at getting something big. Not just another single exalted orb, chaos orb, or piece of trash gear that you're gonna slam and then throw on the floor. Okay, now let's look at the results from the first 50 maps. Now, admittedly, 50 isn't a huge sample size, but we could also take into account that since I've been playing Path of Exile 2, I've probably done at least another 50 to 100 rituals randomly throughout mapping during my 400 hours of gameplay. And I have never seen an Audience with the King, or any of the omens priced above 1 exalted orb. I'm not gonna lie, at this point, mentally, I was definitely dooming a bit. How are there so many Audiences with the King even being sold when the drop chance seems so low? This is when I went back to fully investigate the ritual atlas tree and noticed a few very important notables. Tempting offers, which allows you to re-roll your rituals an additional time. Huge. Ominous portents. Rituals have 50% increased chance to contain omens. Solid. Key approaches. 50% increased chance to contain an audience with the king.
What the is that?
So I decided to bite the bullet and invest 18 divs into this strategy to fully test it so you guys don't have to. And that way we can figure out once and for all if this is a viable way to earn tons of currency or not. Why am I only investing 18 divs instead of 24? Well, if you were going to farm the ritual boss, then you would want to have 8 out of 8 points invested. But since we are just trying to get the audience with the kings to sell them at the currency exchange, 18 is fine. Basically, I plan to use this Atlas setup till we get an audience to show up. Then we will respec tempting offers to spreading darkness, so we are guaranteed 4 rituals per map, and then that will help us be able to afford the audience instead of being forced to defer it 15 times. Now, after that huge investment, I ran 50 more ritual maps, and here are the results. That's right, I got 2 audience with the kings. After not getting any for my first 400 hours of game time, I finally got not 1, but 2. Now, I haven't made my money back on the investment just quite yet, but at this point, I think I'm onto something, and I get another one in no time. I also got a few of the cheaper 8 Exalt Omens to drop, but none of the big juicy ones. I suspect those might only come from the boss fight, but you guys can let me know on that one. Ultimately, what's really going to determine if this is a good currency farming strat for you or not is 2 things. 1, can you afford the 18 div minimum buy-in? And 2, your clear speed. On average, my maps were taking me around 4 minutes to clear. That's 15 maps per hour. Within 50 maps, I got an audience with the king twice. Let's round that to about 3.5 hours of super dialed in gameplay. Our profit was 12 divine orbs, which brings us to 3.6 divines per hour, exclusively from the rituals. Keep in mind, it's actually just slightly more than that if you were to also count the drops from the maps while we were clearing to the rituals. If you want to try and calculate the profit per hour you're going to make from this strategy, then just multiply the amount of minutes it takes you to clear one map on average by 50. Then divide that number by 60, then divide 12 by that number. My final thoughts on this method are that it might be a decent currency strat, but I have 2 main issues with it. Number 1, the buy-in to properly play the mechanic is just way too high, and it's out of most players' budgets. Number 2, now I understand most currency farming strats are going to require you to zoom, and maybe it's just me, but being required to zoom to the point of you aren't even finishing the maps anymore, you're just going in, doing the mechanic, and leaving, it didn't really feel that good to play. Now that being said, 3.6 divines per hour, regardless of the rarity on your gear, isn't bad. I'd be curious to know what you guys think on this strategy. Is it okay the way it is, or should GGG do something to it? And if so, what do you think they should do? Thanks so much for watching. As you can probably imagine, running the 100 ritual maps and then putting all of this together, it took some time. So if you enjoyed the video, or if you thought it was helpful, then I would really appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up and like the video. If you have any ideas for future content that you would like to see concerning Path of Exile 2, let me know in the comments, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on my next video. Peace!